We'll get started in about 2 or 3 minutes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Courage panel discussion. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Daly, who will be our moderator for the evening.
Thank you so very, very much. Welcome to all of you who are out there who have joined us tonight for our webinar for Women's History Month, for women in the NAACP. And for women in the NAACP, tonight we are featuring all the women of courage, the women of courage. And even though we have 5 panelists on tonight, I'm sure that out there in the audience, there are many, many women who are women of courage. But we only have 1 hour, and we're going to go through and share our thoughts. And then in the end, we're going to give you a chance to put some questions, throw in some questions, and they are going to be put to each one of us on the stage as we do that. So let me say that for women, it has been a long, long journey, even a long journey to have a Women's History Month, just like it was a long journey to have a Black History Month. And I have to tell you that the Women's History Month goes back to 1909 was the first Black Women's History Day, not month. And you know, in 1920, what happened? That we did get the right to vote, even though for Black women, it really wasn't until 1965 when most of us could vote. But let me give you a quick chronology here. But also, I said in 1909, in 1978, we had the first week, but it wasn't all across the country. And then in 1980, President Jimmy Carter declared the week across the country. In 1987, we had it becoming then a month. But now since 1995, every president has issued a proclamation declaring National Women's History Month. And here we are to share our voices. Here we are to share our voices. And so tonight we have with us, Miss Boykin Towns is with us, Miss Camelia Landrum is with us, Miss Danielle Signor is with us, Miss L.J. Williams is with us, and Miss Tanisha Sullivan is with us. All courageous women. And helping us also, Miss Abba Blankston is back there doing the technical work, and Miss Janelle Rucker is there later to take some of the questions for us as we move on. So I'm going to start with this by saying, would you just give your name and give a title as to where you are, because I'm going to come back and build upon that. And I am going to start with you, Miss Boykin Towns.
Good evening, Dr. Daly. Thank you so much for convening us. I'm Karen Boykin Towns, and for this purpose, I'm Vice Chairman of the NAACP National Board of Directors and Chairman of the NAACP Image Awards Committee.
Oh, yes. And then I will go to Miss Landrum.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camelia Landrum. I serve as the Executive Director for the Detroit branch NAACP.
My. And Miss Signor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Sidnor. I am the immediate past president of the Cleveland branch of the NAACP and just proud to be an NAACP member with you all tonight.
Yes, and Miss L. Joy Williams.
Good evening, everyone. I'm L. Joy Williams, and I am president of Brooklyn NAACP.
Oh, yes. And Miss Sullivan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Daly. I'm Tanisha Sullivan, and I'm the president of the Boston branch of the NAACP.
Oh, now, Miss Boykin Towns, you said you were vice chair of the NAACP. Is that what I just heard you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's quite a journey. Could you just tell us in 2 or 3 sentences or a short paragraph, what did it take to get there? And I know you've held some other titles. I know you've been with the corporate America too. So you might want to squeeze that in for us too as you were talking. Vice Chair.
Yes, I would say the easy answer in terms of how I got here was a lot of hard work and a lot of people who sort of pushed me along the way, because it was never something that I planned or strived to get. But I will say it's an honor to serve. My background coming into the NAACP was I was a corporate exec for 22 years. Upon retiring from Pfizer 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I started my own consultancy. I'm senior advisor for a global communications firm, FGS Global. I sit on the board of iFit, which is the maker of Nordic Track. Sit on the advisory board of American Airlines, and stay very, very busy, just trying to do my part.
That is quite a busy life there, Miss Boykin Towns. I'm going to come back to you in a moment because you have sparked something else I want to know. So I'm going to go to you, Miss Sullivan, about your journey. And I know you're president now, whatever. Just talk to us a little bit. Just give us a précis.
Okay, well, I'm really proud to serve as the president for the NAACP Boston branch. We do claim being the first chartered branch of the NAACP back in 1911. And we're very proud of kind of the role that the NAACP Boston branch has played for now over 100 years in the NAACP. I have been president now. This is my the beginning of my 4th term as president of the branch.
Let me stop you. Are you saying your 4th time as president of the Boston branch? Did I hear you correctly?
I've just started my 4th term, so I am now in my 7th year serving as president for the Boston branch. And so for us as a branch, We have just continued to focus on trying to do what we can to advance policy here in the Boston area that really does advance racial justice in the education space, economic opportunity, really all of the areas where the NAACP nationally has kind of set a policy agenda. We at the local branch really try to really be the foot soldiers, if you will, on the ground. And so it has been quite the journey, but truly, as Vice Chair Boykin Towns has said, it is an honor to serve, and especially an honor to serve in this historic organization.
And don't forget to share that we're coming to Boston for our convention.
Yes, indeed. And so the 114th National Convention will be held in the city of Boston this summer, July 26th through August 1st. And so we're just working really hard, not only as a branch, but really as a city and as a Commonwealth to be prepared to welcome NAACPers from across the country. The other piece I want to share, and maybe we'll get to it because it's a really interesting fact about the Boston branch. So the Boston branch also has the distinction of having the first woman president of a branch, Florence LeSueur. The first woman to serve as president of a branch, of a unit in the NAACP actually was elected here in Boston. And so that's a historical fact that we're really proud of too.
Thanks for the history, but now your role as president is a volunteer role.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your paid role?
Mm-hmm.
I believe you are a lawyer. I believe you are a lawyer.
Yes, I am. I've now been practicing law for about 20 years. My work, I'm a corporate lawyer, and I've worked primarily in the life sciences industry. For the supporting life sciences companies for the majority of my career, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. But I've recently kind of followed in Vice Chair Boykin Towns' footsteps and have transitioned into corporate affairs. But again, I love the work that I do professionally. There are not a lot of women, certainly not a lot of Black women, who do what I do. But part of the work is really helping to ensure that we're widening the pathways so that more women of color, more Black women can see ourselves in these professional roles, in these executive roles in corporate America as well.
Okay, all right, let's go to you, Ms. Signor.
So I am, the immediate past president of the Cleveland branch, the NAACP. I served 2 terms. In addition to being president, like you said, because it's a volunteer role. And I think that's an important thing to lift up, because oftentimes the work that we do as leaders in the community, folks feel like this is our full-time job. And most of the branch presidents are also working to try and support themselves and their families and the other things that they do. So my day job, I am the CEO of a nonprofit organization called Rise Together Innovation Institute, and we focus on reducing poverty. And so I can credit a lot of the opportunities that I even have had professionally from my service in the NAACP, from leadership opportunities where people had a chance to see me work, they had a chance to see me serve, and trusted that in other areas in the community, I could bring that same level of excellence and that same level of service to the table.
My goodness, such confidence, such competency. Oh, let me go to Miss L. Joy Williams.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Daly. So I am currently serving as Brooklyn NAACP president, and I think that I'm going into my 9th year as president. And it is all Vice Chair Karen Boykin Towns' fault that I'm here serving under her.
Let's stop right there. Are you the president for the vice president of the board of the NAACP? Are you?
Yes, she's my president.
Yes,
she's my president.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. That is awesome. Yes. Okay.
And in terms of my day job, I wear many hats, but in general, I am a political strategist and help people get elected, primarily Black women across the country. In addition, I host a show on SiriusXM called Sunday Civics, where I use the current political landscape to teach civics to adults.
And it's a twice nominated NAACP Image Award nominee.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great, 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 great. And yes, Ms. Landrum.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. So unlike the volunteers on this call, I actually work full-time for the Detroit branch of ACP. Which I do think we all get to say we have made this a part of our lifestyle. It is definitely a labor of love. I began my work in the NAACP around 15. I used to be president of our youth council. And then I had the opportunity to work in our state conference. I served on the National Board of Directors for 2 years as a Region 3 youth board member. And then when I graduated from college, I landed at the Detroit branch NAACP as an office assistant. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity through a lot of hard work. I always say I stayed very curious about the NAACP, whether it was policy, administration, community work. I always wanted to know how I could serve the NAACP better. And so when I had an opportunity to do this role full time, I took it. And I was so thankful that our executive committee believed in my leadership as a young woman who grew up. I knew the NAACP, but being in a top executive role was a little different. Nonetheless, I've had so much support from our national office all the way down to our local members. And I definitely know that that's one of the reasons I'm able to stay here in this position today.
But you're all in top leadership positions, but you must have come across some barriers, because as women, we come across many barriers because sexism is still out there, just like racism is out there and ageism is out there. What barriers have you encountered and how did you get across those barriers? Anyone who would like to talk first. I see you like you want to talk, Ms. Sullivan. I saw you there like you just wanted to speak up.
Well, look, I think it is important to acknowledge that, especially as women of color, especially as Black women, that the isms we are overcoming, they exist, right? And so being a woman in the movement, being a leader in the movement and being a woman, there are some barriers that I think many of us have faced. I can speak personally to that. One of the things that I really try to stay focused on in order to overcome those challenges, though, is truly the work in the people. I mean, at the end of the day, what's most important is that we are advocating for policies that can make a difference, a real meaningful difference in the lives of Black folk in our communities. And so while there may be challenges related to sexism, just as there are challenges related to racism, I think it's important for us to stay focused on the work. 1. 2, I also think it's important for us as women to ensure that we are supporting other women who are in the movement as well, and doing what we can to create more space for women in leadership in this movement, doing what we can to ensure that we are having intersectional conversations about gender equity and racial equity. For far too long in the civil rights movement, we as women have been the chief strategists. Behind the scenes. Intentionally held behind the scenes. And so it is quite significant that today in the NAACP, we do have a vice chair who's a woman. It is significant that our chair emeritus, Rosalind Brock, is a woman in the NAACP. It is important for us to lift up women in leadership and also to continue to make more space for more women to be here with us.
And sometimes we discriminate against each other for many reasons, but Ms. Signor, can you think of a barrier? You're in the corporate world and you're in a big branch and all of that. But in the corporate world, did you come across any barriers? And how did you find the courage to overcome, if you did?
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that service and then leadership in organizations where you see other strong, powerful women provides you with a level of courage to take those same things into your day-to-day work. And sometimes it can be intimidating to speak truth to power at the place that pays the bills. But I have found myself in situations, my great aunt is on the national board of the NAACP, and she's always been an example to me of what it means to be courageous. And so I remember a time when I was managing right after President Obama was elected, and I'd worn a t-shirt over top of my button down because I was going to be on dress code. We had to wear button down shirts to work, but I wore a t-shirt that had the likeness of our new president on it. And previously someone had had some other paraphernalia, and I questioned whether or not that was acceptable. And I was told by leadership that it absolutely was. And so then I got called into my manager's office and said that someone was concerned about my t-shirt. They were offended. And I said, wait a minute. When someone else had other paraphernalia for a different person that was not the president, you said it was okay. So clearly this is not going to be a problem. So I took it upon myself to call human resources and got a confirmation that my behavior was okay. And I went back to my boss and said, you're going to have to get over the fact that this is our president. I'm in compliance. It's not a problem. And we're going to move forward. So it does take courage. And I say you got to do it afraid. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing it in spite of.
And you took a bold step.
Absolutely.
Bold step. So, Madam Vice Chair, have you come across any barriers at all? Have you, Madam Vice Chair Boykin Towns, have you come across any barriers?
Yeah, I mean, I think
advisor or with the organizations or whatever. I wouldn't say with the NAACP, but anywhere you can take it anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, well, I think certainly as women, as Black women, if we're going to be honest, barriers are something that we face
Every day.
regularly, and at the same time, we don't let them get in our way because we just have to keep it moving, as they say. And, you know, I think for me, a big part of my career, and I'm so pleased that I'm not going to shout her out, but you know who she is, someone who I worked with at Pfizer who reported into me is on this call. And I think one thing that was very important to me is when we get into leadership roles, that we don't try and shut other people out, that we hold that door open and help bring people up. Because what I still get so surprised about is when I speak to women who are even at levels higher than I, and you hear their stories of challenge, right? And, you know, you always think maybe it'll be easier when you get up higher, but no, what is it? What's that saying? Different level, different devil. It just does not end. But as women, it is just so critically important that, you know, when we're at the table and they say those things like, oh, she does not have executive presence, that you challenge, what does executive presence look like? And because then when you ask those questions, there is not really the ability to give fact or give specifics. It's that sort of thing they put out there that tries to keep us down and keep us out. And so for me, while there are always barriers, you know, it's really about, you know, overcoming them and really helping others to kind of navigate, particularly when I'm at the table and I am able to use my voice to help others.
Mm-hmm. And Miss L. Joy Williams, you're very global. You've been up many levels and and recommended for high levels, but I'm sure there are barriers there. I'm sure there are people who want to say, well, who is she? How did she get there? How do you handle all of that, Miss Joy Williams?
Well, what I want to be honest and say is it's not as if those statements and those things don't seep into your consciousness. It don't, it doesn't take on, right? Like, we're not super women in the fact that it doesn't affect us and our well-being. So, it is okay to feel a little down about those comments, or why is she there and not me, and she's not even qualified, or things of that nature. It is okay to feel down about that. What is important is that you then, something I learned from therapy, you then repeat the facts to yourself, right? And even write them down if need be. The fact is, I'm in the position that I'm qualified to be because of X, right? Because I did the work, because I'm, leading, because people elected me to be president, right? Like, things of that nature. So then when you have the reality of the facts, and sometimes your brain may play tricks on you and maybe feed into what other people, what naysayers, what people who don't have those skills or things, might be saying, but then you have the facts on paper. The fact is, I was elected president. The fact is, people put enough trust and faith in the way that you lead, in the work that you do, that they want to be led by you. So being able to combat that, and, it's okay if you, feel the little sting, but it's also important that you repeat the facts to yourself, and that you continue to lead with the dedication and the commitment that you have. And it's really important that we keep highlighting that these are volunteer positions, because this means that we have decided, no one pushed it upon us or anything like that, right? We have decided that we want to lead in this role, and it is important that we recognize our leadership ability in leading others who are volunteering, right? That's a whole nother skill set, to be able to motivate and encourage people who are not getting paid, who are doing this because they believe in the mission, they believe in the organization, and they're moving things forward. That is a different skill set that even people in corporate America don't have, right? That you are able to mobilize and engage people to give of their time, to give of their resources, to achieve a goal and a mission together. And so it's really important that we highlight those things, because those are transferable skills that even people, with 10, 20 years, 40 years in corporate America may find difficult to do.
And I heard you giving kind of self-affirmations there. I heard you relating to others, because you've got to bring in other people with you and get over insecurities in many ways. And now let me go to this person up here, who is an executive director of a Detroit branch of a big city.
Yes, we are the biggest and the baddest.
You don't have any barriers in that job at all, do you? Any barriers? Not at all. Smooth sailing.
My, how I wish it was. I can definitely say, for my personal journey between sexism and ageism, those are probably the two that beat me in the face the most, especially starting off in this position. I can't tell you how many times someone called me for an opinion that was looking for an answer from the branch, didn't like the answer I gave, and then called my boss to try to get a different answer. But thankfully, he would support me in my decisions as an executive leader. I think the way that I overcame those barriers, or still work to overcome them, I would say everything that all of our other panelists have said, but I will also add, I truly believe that we're doing passion work, just like Joy just spoke about. And so when you're doing passion work, it's really hard to get you to turn away because you love what you're doing. I would also say, I think it's very clear. We all know that we're standing on the shoulders of other women that helped us get here. So that first Boston branch president, Tanisha's carrying on that legacy. Our vice chairs that have been women, Madam Vice Chair is carrying on that legacy. I think we see it when we travel. We were all talking about traveling right before this. And I know that when you see NAACP on those walls of leadership and legacy and history, when you go somewhere, that inspires you to want to do even more, because you know you're standing on the shoulders of those that have worked very hard for you to be able to carry that torch right now. So I think that's a part of coming over the barriers. You know where you're going, even if you don't have it all figured out. And because of the dedication we've made to this organization and to our communities, that keeps up the momentum for us to be able to do a really good job at what we are trying to accomplish.
And whatever barriers put out there is an opportunity to move and an opportunity for change. Now, this is a general question. I want you to think for just a moment. I want you to think for just a moment. Can you think of one bold step that you have taken? One bold step you have taken in any, not necessarily in the NAACP, but one bold step, whether you made it or you didn't make it. Ms. Sullivan.
Well, I can think of a couple, but I'll call out the most recent one of the most recent. Last year, I decided to run for public office, and
decided to run for public office.
Yes,
that's a great thing to do. Yes, okay.
Well, I think it's
use the strategies we have here.
yes, yes, and fortunately, and I will say, with the support of many other women, specifically Black women and women of color, and organizations that support women and Black women running. We are a nonpartisan organization here in the NAACP. That said, we certainly understand what political power means. And I think it's really important that we continue to encourage more women, more Black women to run for office. The fact of the matter is, and this goes to what Eljoy was sharing, the fact of the matter is that so much of the work that we're doing, so much of the training that we receive, not even realizing we're getting trained, through the NAACP really does help to prepare NAACPers to take on, raise our hands for policy-making roles, whether they are elected offices or appointed offices. Really and truly, if you are a volunteer within the NAACP doing the work of the NAACP, it is a tremendous training ground. And so last year, I did decide to run for public office. It was literally, like Danielle said, doing the thing scared. Probably one of the most challenging decisions I've ever made, but I've got to tell you, it was the best decision that I could have made to run for Secretary of State here in Massachusetts. The opportunity. Yes.
Secretary of State of the state of Massachusetts?
Yes.
Had you been in a position before? Had you been elected to something else before?
President of the NAACP Boston branch.
Okay, but you took a bold step with great courage to run for Secretary of State of Massachusetts.
Yes. Yes.
Right, go right on.
Absolutely. And I think, part of it was really, truly listening to the people around me, advisors who really did help me to make the decision to run. But the point that I really want to make here is I do think when it comes to women, being a woman of courage, being women who are deeply committed to, and as Camelia said, passionate about the work that we're doing, that we see ourselves everywhere. And that is, yes, being the ones who knock on the doors as community advocates. And it also means the ones who hold the pen when it comes to advancing public policy. And so I am hoping that in years to come, we will see more women running with organizations like Higher Heights, Joy, organizations like Emerge and Emily's List and the Collective PAC, that we will see more women, specifically more Black women, seeing ourselves running, actually running, supporting one another when we do run, winning, and continuing to do the work through these offices.
Did you win?
I did not win the office that I sought, but I did have, as a result, the opportunity to serve in other ways. And I think that's also key. One of the opportunities that was extended to me by our newly elected governor here in Massachusetts is to serve as the chair for her advisory council on Black empowerment. And so in that role, I serve as one of the governor's and the lieutenant governor's chief advisors as it relates to policies and initiatives that are designed to help support and advance the Black community. And that is, for me, absolutely a win. It was not the win. It wasn't the win that I was necessarily shooting for, but it is absolutely a win in terms of being able to continue the work and being able to continue to help our communities advance.
And so you did win. You did win. You are a winner. Just name, I just want you to name just name a bold something you did. And you don't have to elaborate too much on it. Ms. Williams, something bold, just bold.
Starting my own business.
Okay, something bold, Ms. Signor.
I quit my job during the pandemic.
Okay, all right. Something bold, Executive Director.
It sounds simple, but trusting my own intuition.
Something bold, Madam Vice Chair.
I would say with each opportunity, taking it, even though I may not know exactly how to do it or how to work it, but saying no to fear and taking the opportunity anyway.
Now, being a leader is lonely. Do you agree? There's
Absolutely.
loneliness
Yes.
associated with being a leader.
Absolutely.
There's loneliness. How do you deal with that? How do you, just in a sentence, how do you deal with it? Anyone can start. How do you deal with the fact that there may be loneliness with it? And I have to tell you, people love you until you get to be a leader. Then they start criticizing you. Your hair's not right, your dress not right, or whatever. You get things you didn't get before. But how do you deal with that? The loneliness and those terms that come out there. And I'm gonna start with you this time, Ms. Eljoy.
I would say is having, the latest craze is to say a balance of life. And that balance teeter-totters in different ways. It's not always perfect. But, even when you have to be in the office by yourself, putting, stuff in the gift bags from an event because all of the volunteers fell through, or you made a decision that's not popular or things like that, and you feel that you are alone, the important thing is to have another support system that is not completely based on, the organization or your leadership style. For me, it's, my husband, my family, excuse me, my mentors, like the vice chair. So having other supports are really important.
Very important. Miss Executive Director.
I certainly agree. Loneliness can be hard, especially if you don't have family to turn to be able to fill some of those voids. I think that's when you start to find those new hobbies or those new things, or find those wants that you really want to do, and make sure you include them in your lifestyle. If that be a trip that's somewhere you want to go, or if it's a play you want to see, you have to find a way to make sure that when you are in those lonely times, you can fill it with something good. I personally like listening to women powerful sermons, which help to give me that encouragement when I'm not feeling it, and I need some direction. And so you also end up knowing that like it gets better. And even though you may have those lonely moments, they won't last forever.
Madam Vice Chair.
That's a great question. When I think of the loneliness, it's really when, you're in a position and you have information, you're making decisions that impact others that you really can't share, right? Because when you get to a certain level, things are going on and you just can't share that. And, it's been sort of the story of my life for many years now. And it's one that at least that I recognize. And I have learned to trust my own counsel. And sometimes it's even things I can't tell my husband. And it's just one of those things that you realize, and you hope that you have people in your life who understand, and they don't try and get you to share things that you can't share. But I do agree with Joy that, when it is not that, secretive, but where you are able to use and lean on your tribe, your sister girlfriends who, are in positions and understand, that is always a nice relief, for sure.
Ms. Signor?
I think that sometimes it's important to disconnect. And I know you talked about the loneliness sometimes coming from criticism and the things that we think other people are saying and doing. And I have found in my leadership journey that it's okay for me just to have down days where loneliness isn't necessarily being alone by myself. That sometimes is what I actually need to recharge, is because when people are calling me, everybody wants a thing from you as the leader. And sometimes it's like, I'm just not answering my phone today. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some time and rest and just be by myself. And that energizes me and recharges me to go back into that space where I know the weight is on my shoulders, but now I've been refreshed a little bit.
Yep.
Ms. Sullivan?
I want to lift up something that Joy shared earlier, because I think it's really important. And that's, this piece around being human, human, right? And the humanity that exists in all of us. And I think, whether we're conscious of it or not, this temptation to be superhuman is something that I'm just very conscious of. And so from a leadership standpoint, I do think there is some level of normalcy as it relates to kind of this isolation or loneliness that can come when you're in leadership, especially doing the type of work that we do in the NAACP, which is not just race relations, but it is racial justice work. And when you're doing racial justice work, like really doing racial justice work, it's disruptive. And by nature, by design, you're trying to intentionally dismantle systems of oppression. And so by nature, some of the work we do is unpopular and just opens us up to attack, personal attack. And so I think it's really important, as Joy said, to acknowledge that we are human, that we do feel it, and that all of these emotions are natural. And, for me, two things I do help work through it, because for sure I feel it. One is, yes, trying to ensure that I am staying connected to people who I know and understand love me, understand me, and are going to, lift me up even when I cannot, as Vice Chair Boykin said, even when I cannot share it all, they just have an understanding of the seat that I'm sitting in. So that's one. And the other piece is, like Danielle said, I love being by myself. So it is, so those opportunities to disconnect, whether it's vacationing by myself, where it is just me, myself, and I don't have to, respond to the demands. I really do love those moments in that time. And I try to be intentional about creating those opportunities for myself and reminding myself that I deserve it.
Okay. I want to ask you one statement before we open it up to any comments that might come into us from the audience. I want you to give one comment that you would like to share with a young girl, with a young woman out there, in terms of becoming a leader, and as she becomes a leader, courageous leader. Just one bit of tidbit that you would throw out to a young woman who may be desiring to become a courageous leader.
I'll start.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll start. I'll just say that identify your tribe, right? Identify the group of people, the small group of people who you can lean on, who will uplift you, who you can learn from, who you can be supported by and support. I think that just throughout my career, even in this realm, having a core group of people who I can go to, and what's that saying? If you're the smartest person in your friend group, you need a new friend group, making sure that you have a group of people around you who, you can support and who can support you. I think it's just really beneficial for the long haul.
Start early building your support base. Go right on. A comment to a young girl.
I would say abandon fear of failure, because failure is part of a really good leadership process. So one, that you would fail at something because you are able to learn from it, but then also not wanting to execute things so perfectly that you don't let others fail. And try and learn from their experience as well. And that's particularly those who I think they call it like type A or whatever, who want things to be perfect and, in line. But if you don't give people the opportunity to try something, to fail, to learn from it, then they can't learn how to become leaders themselves.
You're saying get rid of self-doubt. Go ahead, Ms. Signor.
I would say start taking risk early and know that you're never too young to advocate, especially for yourself, whatever the situation is. If it don't feel right, if there's something wrong, speak up, start testing and using your voice early.
President of the Boston branch.
Yes, I'm going to pick up where Danielle left off. I think finding your voice, trusting your voice, and using your voice is really important. And also knowing your power. I mean, learning, I love comics, right? And superhero movies, and love the origin stories as superheroes are learning their powers, and it's kind of a little wild and crazy. Know and understand that you do have a superpower, at least one, sometimes more than one, and really learning how to use it so that it can help you along your journey and not, end up being a hindrance. So we all have superpowers. Learn it, hone it, use it.
All right, great. And Miss Executive Director of the Detroit branch.
I love that introduction every time. I would say everything you need really is down on the inside. It will come out at different times, depending on where you are in your career or whatever you're working on. But those things that you need, you already have it. And so just continue to hone in on them. And when it's time for them to come out and wow and really propel you to the next level, they're already there. You just have to be tapped into it.
You're great panelists. You've come up with some excellent ideas. We could go on for another hour, but that's not the way we're set up tonight. But we've gone over the time when we were going to have comments from the audience out there to send in some questions for us. And then we're going to close it out afterwards briefly. So I would like to ask, is it Ms. Rucker, did any questions or comments come in for us? If not, we could go on.
Yes, you all got quite a few questions. Everyone's loving
But
the
you have
panel.
to screen them. I don't see them, so you have to screen them because we only have about 5 or 6 minutes.
Yep.
Comments.
So-
Right on, throw the mic to us.
Okay, so kind of piggybacking off of what you all were just speaking about, the advice to younger women, what should we all be doing to make sure that we're making a way and assisting those young women to follow in your footsteps?
Who would like to take that?
I will. I think to not be so critical. I think that a lot of times we see young women leaders and we talk about how they may be showing up, or we talk about what are the things they're not doing. I think we can extend a bit more grace, and if anything, extend ourselves to really be engaged with them more, versus, because no one wants to come to someone if they feel that all they're doing is speaking negatively about them. And so I think to extend more grace and to really remember also when we were first starting out. I tell my daughters all the time, the Karen that they see at 57 is not the Karen of 27 or 21, their ages. And so we all evolve and learn and grow. And we should afford that to the now generation of leaders as well.
And whether you believe it or not, each one is mentoring. Whether you believe it or not, you are mentoring. Okay, and that's another aspect. Another comment for us, quickly, a question for us.
Sure. What is one thing that you found to help you manage during times of high stress? You talked a little bit about self-care. What are some activities or things that you all do to kind of make it through the stressful times?
Who wants to take that? That sounds like your Miss L. Joyce question.
Again, I believe well-rounded humans need hobbies. And to be able to just lean into a hobby when you're feeling stressed, and that hobby can be, wine and cheese. It can be, well, not too much wine, but it can be crafting, which is mine, crafting and building. It can be reading, it can be going on hikes, just find something that is, a hobby, something that you enjoy, that gives you pleasure.
Just working puzzles or something of that nature. Throw out the next question quickly.
How do you set boundaries while you're on your leadership journey?
Okay, let's ignore yours. Boundaries.
I learned very early in my leadership journey from a woman that I love that no is a complete sentence. And as women, we do a lot of explaining, but let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. And the more that you do that, people start to learn how to treat you, and they learn to expect certain things from you and not expect certain things. And you have to be okay with knowing that you're going to make some people upset along the way.
Okay, and the next question.
Have any of you used your voice to only be told you have too much attitude or you're too assertive? If so, how did you handle that situation?
Women are assertive. Oh, yeah. Men are not assertive. Leaders. Ms. Executive Director.
Hey, this is my job. This is what I'm paid to do, and I have a responsibility to do it. So whether you call it assertiveness, bossiness, or whatever, I know that I'm doing, in my opinion, the work of the Lord. And that is why I am in this position. So toodles to you.
All right, the next question or comment.
There's a lot of questions around how to get involved in the NAACP and what some of you all are working on within your branches that you're excited about right now.
Okay, we'll go where the convention is going this year. We're going up to Boston. the first branch to be chartered in the NAACP, which was founded in 1909. Okay, go on there, Ms. Sullivan, President Sullivan.
Well, I encourage you, if you're not a member of the NAACP, to visit naacp.org to become a member. There you can put in your zip code and find a branch that is near you, and get going with your membership. We are a membership-driven organization, and I'm sure units across the country would love to have you as a member. Here in Boston, we've got quite a lot going on. We are right now in the middle of a federal lawsuit related to redistricting that is quite active here. The branch played an active role in municipal redistricting in Boston, and the maps have been challenged in federal court. And so we're actively involved there. We recently worked with our city council to advance work around reparations. And so here in the city of Boston, we have started the work of reparations specifically for the descendants of enslaved Black people. And also here in Boston, we've done quite a bit of work as it relates to reimagining policing. Specifically related to policing accountability and transparency. And so our work really does center, again, on the national priorities, education, innovation, race, opportunity, and justice, environmental and climate justice, and health equity. All of those pillars nationally are our pillars locally, as it is with many other branches, units across the country.
So I hear you saying, as courageous women in the NAACP, that if you really want to make a difference, it doesn't have to be way up here so global, but if you want to make a difference in your community, you should be a member of the NAACP. Is that what I heard, Ms. Borkentowns? Is that what I heard?
I think that is exactly what you heard.
And that it's so broad in terms of what you can do, and that you don't always have to be left out there wondering. There are a lot of people say, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. But if you want a friend, you have to work. If you work on a committee, you're joining a friend. Right now, I have some new friends on this screen. And I had not met Ms. Sullivan in person. We had talked. We possibly had been in the same group, not knowing it, but we were together this week. We were both panelists on different programs there. But I feel now I've made a new friend right there. And I feel that Ms. Williams is a new friend, and Ms. Signor and Ms. Executive Director and Vice Chair right there. I've never really related to the Vice Chair, just a little bit, but not really much. But I feel now, going through this whole process, I have what I would call connectivity, relationship building, very key in any way in which we are going to survive and exist.
And Dr. Daly, you know, relationships are really what is the heart of making anything happen. And so it's important that we build relationships, and hopefully you build them before you need them. But it's really the way, I think our chairman emeritus likes to say, relationships are primary and everything else is derivative, right? And so it is through relationships that we're able to get the work done. And so, you know, the relationships with these women here are invaluable, and it's really a pleasure to be with each of them and admire all that they do on behalf of not just the organization, but the communities in which they live and work.
Yes, and I'm not
Dr. Daly,
yes.
real quick what we're working on. I have to, because it's my job. The Detroit branch NAACP, we are working on the June Jubilee. It's the 60th anniversary of the March to Freedom for Dr. Martin Luther King. It'll be in Detroit, June 24th, along with our 68th annual Fight for Freedom Fund dinner, June 25th. What's most important to me is that a lot of the women—
Do you have the largest Freedom Fund dinner in the whole world? In the whole world?
Yes. We are the only branch to have sitting presidents, vice presidents, your who's who of keynote speakers and awardees have all been with us. So we want to invite you to Detroit, June 24th and June 25th to celebrate freedom with us.
And all of us on this panel are invited. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you have a personal invitation.
Okay, we really don't have time for any more questions because we were supposed to stop at 8 o'clock. But I'm going to say to staff, if you were to send the questions on to me, I will personally try to get an answer from the panelists, and maybe in some way we could say these are questions we did not get to, but we're going to forward it out. You know, now we can forward everything out, our system administrators on, we can forward out everything. So all of the questions and comments left, I'm asking staff, send them on to me. And I'm going to be talking with each one of you, and we are going to get some kind of a comment to go with each question, and we are going to ask staff to send them out to us. I'm going to say it has been a joy to celebrate Women's History Month with 5 courageous leaders, 5 courageous leaders. And we know that leadership is a journey. It's not always an easy journey, but it is a journey leading to many, many things to fight for justice in this great country, the United States of America. I want to thank all of the almost 2,000 people who joined us online out there. I want to thank staff for helping us to facilitate this. And maybe next year, we might have another rigorous discussion. But I hope we'll all gather together in Boston in some way and just chat about tonight. Thank you, Ms. Landrum. Thank you, Ms. Signor. Thank you, Ms. L. Joy Williams. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. We'll be there with you. And Madam Vice Chair, thank you so very much for being with us. And I'd like to say good night to all who have joined us tonight. And I would also like to thank Ms. Ava Blankston for helping to facilitate this, Good night to all of you. Good night. Good night.